Judge Joe Brown is a source of a lot of information, and I admire how his memory remains sharp in his old age. He remembers plenty. His memory does not seem to uh, decline, even though I last remember hearing him say something about being in his 70s. Um, he comes from the boomer generation, and so some of his views are quite predictable, considering not only the generation, but also the inside knowledge that he has of a lot of things of which we only uh, hear rumors or misconceptions, even. One of them is his view on bullies and how to handle them. In the minds of boomers like him, you can punch a bully in the jaw and they will go down and learn not to mess with you anymore. I believe that was true when they were growing up. In real life, today, that isn't true. In times like these, kids and teens in general seriously avoid painful consequences like people always have, but they're really good at identifying from where these consequences will come. See, human beings in general find sources of pain and then avoid them, but bullies are especially evil today compared to the days in which these boomers were growing up. If our parents and grandparents are telling the truth about the bullies they had. In their time, you could simply give a bully a good punch on the chin and knock them unconscious. And then when they awakened, they learned that they better not do that again. They better not target you again. These days, though, same as when I was in my teens, which were 30 years ago, many bullies couldn't learn from being stood up to. You couldn't teach a lesson that simple, that simply. And it was especially true for black bullies. You didn't just stand up to them and then they stopped. You had to win. But if you could win, then they wouldn't even bully you in the first place. They never did these things when they were outmatched in terms of size or height or arm span. The rare instances in which bullies learned their lessons were the rare instances in which they misjudged someone as being beatable and then found that that wasn't the case. They would simply become more careful about who they were going to target at that point. They never did these things when they were outmatched in terms of size or height or arm span. Now, I also noticed that black boys that were truly angry about something in life would prefer to channel their rage into something more like boxing, and they weren't about to pick fights with non-boxers to prove that they were good boxers or street fighters. That wouldn't go over well with real tough guys from their neighborhoods. But black bullies that actually did bully other people didn't learn to stop because they encountered resistance. Unless they were just looking for amusement. And the most determined of white bullies normally either learned from black bullies or they bullied black kids. Outside of that, white bullies were something else. You could generally just surprise them with more pain than they expected, and they'd rethink bullying you. But they were also more likely to sneak up on you later on if you did surprise them with a resistance. So they may still not learn that lesson. Now, I do understand something about this particular interaction about which the USA is riled up right now. And that is because a particular bully had a twin. This bully was not going to learn until the two were only one left. And that's what happened. Hunter did not choose to grab Carmelo, and he's still alive. He simply would have helped out his brother Austin, even though Austin started the fight by grabbing Carmelo, if Carmelo had not punctured Austin first. If Carmelo had decided to do what Judge Brown and many boomers say he should have done, he would have been outnumbered and Hunter would have protected Austin, but Austin would have simply never learned his lesson. We don't really blame Hunter for this if we think about it, because he's a twin and we know that twins have an abnormal bond that we don't have with non-twin siblings. Identical twins even hug each other in the womb. The first and last person Austin ever hugged was his twin brother. From the womb until his tomb, from FAFO. As abnormal as Austin was, I assume that he had a hell of a bond with his twin Hunter in all likelihood, and Hunter will still experience that bond in the absence of Austin, and this is going to drive him nuts. He may not have slept without a nightmare all the way from the time of losing Austin up until now. Simply put, even though Hunter wasn't the one to grab Carmelo, he would have helped his brother Austin, and Austin knew this. Austin was never going to learn any lessons unless Carmelo was able to take on both at one time, or Carmelo was suddenly backed up by others on his team to even out the odds, or even change the odds in Carmelo's favor, making it so that Austin simply couldn't win. And Austin knew this. Austin wasn't going to learn any lessons unless Carmelo was able to take on, unless Carmelo was able to take on, or Carmelo and company were able to take on both of them. And I don't think that Austin still would have managed to be able to learn a lesson. Because Wyatt supremacists are often convinced that they're right somehow, and they think that their bias is a divine outrage, and therefore it is just. They see it as a righteous anger. They view themselves as being on some sort of crusade for white baby Jesus to save heaven from being overrun by us non-whites, especially us darkies from Black Africa, with our drums and rhythm, melanin, naps, and African language that their cold, afflicted brains and tiny primate lips can't properly pronounce, no matter how many old Tarzan movies they watch. Austin was never going to learn in a normal fight in which his opponent is outnumbered. Which is why it is that Austin chose to engage in the first place. Hunter was being loyal to his twin, which was still immoral in this case, but just barely voluntary, if at all. Austin wanted that fight because of Hunter's loyalty, and unlike Judge Joe Brown, despite his greater experience and knowledge in general in life, I know, and many people in my age group and younger know, that Austin was never going to learn any lessons without being disabled from fighting anymore at all, and probably not even then if he was alive to remain stubborn. Carmelo didn't try to kill him, nor did he know he killed him after he ran off, but he did know that without puncturing that savage caveman somewhere on his person, Carmelo wasn't going to be safe. And Carmelo's not required to run away every time some in-shape Wyatt male decides to get stripes at his expense by proving his mettle against one of us darkies and trying to become the great white hope. Carmelo didn't have the option of just standing up and squaring up and standing up to Austin and going on with his life. This is not a 70s or 80s movie about some bully. This isn't Back to the Future. Carmelo isn't Marty McFly or George McFly, and Austin wasn't Biff Tanner. When America watched these movies, these bullies, both the bullies at the time of these movies and those who were going to become bullies later on, watched the same movies with the rest of America and the rest of the English-speaking world, and they planned around the expectations everyone had, that they could learn not to bully someone just by being stood up to. They decided that until they were overpowered, they wouldn't stop, and they wouldn't choose targets who could overpower them. So by 1987, we needed a hell of a lot more than just courage to teach bullies the lessons they need to learn for others to be safe from them. My son found this out. My son had a bully in middle school, but this bully bullied some other people. My son had to get into high school with some of the other former victims of this bully, and then they got together and said, you know what, now we're in high school. Let's go ahead and get this guy before he thinks to do anything to any of us, because right now we have an opportunity to get in contact with each other. We have more contact with each other than he has with either of us. Before this changes, let's go ahead and take advantage of our numbers against this guy. This was how my son and company were able to avenge themselves against that bully. They got together, they beat him up, they pummeled him, and they told him, if you retaliate against one of us, we will all come back and do the same thing. If you rat one of us out, all of us will come back and do the same thing. If you bully anybody else again, then we and they will come back. Every single time you win a fight that you pick, we're coming back. And what they had to tell him was the same thing that he had in his mind back in middle school. We will never be able to learn some lesson that we shouldn't do this to you because you deserve it. We should do it to you. You retaliate, you don't take and eat what you deserve right now, we will come back with worse, and we'll keep doing this until you're dead. And that's what it took. And even then, they had to sometimes face high school bullies. Sadly, our elders weren't aware enough to catch up and figure out some better advice, and many simply weren't able to even think of better to tell us. That is not our fault. Some of these boomers really did not know the updates, and I don't blame them for that. Other boomers didn't care. They weren't going to let anybody younger than them tell them what had changed since they were young. They couldn't be bothered to think of what to do next and what to adapt and how to tell young folks to adapt. It was as simple as, you get out there and punch them in the jaw, or I'm going to keep beating your behind every day until you do. And well, a lot of their kids don't take care of them these days. But it is not our fault that the boomers who formed the source of advice for us, and even for these younger than Gen X age groups, did not come with any updates. Accept no accountability for that, because it wasn't you, it was them. Understand that is why I have said some things I said earlier about what bullies deserve, and why I mean what I said from the bottom of my black heart and from the depth of my black mind. By the same token, I am also talking about bullies who either physically harm or threaten physical harm, not just what people today call bullies, people who merely say something you don't like. I'm not talking about them. Kyle Rittenhouse was a bully, and he got acquitted. He broke state and federal laws to do what he did. He got acquitted. Carmelo Anthony is not looking at being acquitted, although he was more legal than was Kyle Rittenhouse. And I know how I pronounced his name. I agree with people having a right to self-defense. I do not think that what Kyle Rittenhouse did was okay. And Kyle Rittenhouse was a bully himself. He fought a girl back when he was in high school. He just liked violence. And he may have actually been trying to protect somebody's property, ironically, a non-white business owner's business. But that's not why he went over to do what he did. That's not why he crossed state lines with a weapon he was not supposed to own, apparently in either one of the two states. He did it so that he could have a field day shooting darkies, as he termed them, rioters. And now we're looking at Carmelo, because he did a lot less in self-defense and didn't even know that he had fatally punctured his attacker, is still behind bars. And conservatives who believed that Kyle Rittenhouse should be off and acquitted because Second Amendment, now want to make sure that no bail nor defense money is ever successfully raised for Carmelo Anthony, as if he does not have a right to a defense. I have told you all multiple times that Wyatt America is still not our friend. And that when some of you decide to stay in the United States, it's okay as long as you understand they're your enemies. You deserve every benefit and you don't deserve to bear any of its burdens. We've already done that and got nothing for it and none of the benefits. And if you decide that you want to leave and go somewhere where if you do have a hard life, at least everyone has it and you're not going to have it harder because you're black, you are well within your rights and you still deserve all of America's benefits and none of its burdens. Because America, until it is forced to, will never treat you fairly. And I don't think you can force them. Whether you stay or you go, you need to be ready to live in places that are separate and distinct from anyone else, because whether you stay or you go, you must at the very least ask God to rain down his forces of nature against the former colonizers, against the former masters, against the former owners, against the former human traffickers. Because you were still facing a very lynch mob, Ku Klux Klan picnic holiday mentality. And then they're waiting on the day, and it's the young guys too. They're waiting on the day that they can go back to the 1940s and 50s, the day after or hours after some black man has been accused of some sort of impropriety with a Wyatt woman. They're waiting on the lawlessness. They would make holidays of this, send out postcards. People would catch trains and go into a particular county from neighboring areas so that they could get somebody out of a courthouse detention center or jail and take them on the courthouse lawn and with no trial or anything else, hang, lynch, and burn based on accusations. Screw a trial. This is what they want to go back to. When I was the age of Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf and Hunter Metcalf, they wanted to go back to those days. Even when they were listening to our music and trying to get those Vanilla Ice haircuts, they wanted to go back to those days. Days that had supposedly ended before they were even born. They'd seen their parents talk about them. And the days that they didn't go to school and they stayed at home, they could see the nostalgia of their parents' generation, Leave It to Beaver. Even when we were nowhere to be found in a good or bad capacity in these shows. They may have nostalgia for days that never are quite the way that they imagine these days to be, or even the ways that their elders have remembered these days, because, you know, in their memories, it's never raining. But nonetheless, they want to go back to this lynch and Negro mentality and lawlessness, and they want to go back to those days when you could go hunting for us with impunity. When if you wanted to break from chastity, you could just go right into our neighborhoods and pick out someone's wife and say, let me hit that. They want to go back to those days, and we're walking around amongst them not realizing how badly they want to go back to them. That is why they voted for Trump the first time. So even when Trump does not quite dream of going back to quite times like that, they still think he does, and so that's enough of a reason for them to support him. That's why they do what they do. So I keep telling you, absolve yourself of the white stuff, the white ways of thinking. Their conservatism. It's not ours. Even if you decide that you're going to try to be like them and go to places like Pattaya so that you can finally get some easy trim, so to speak, or be just treated better. Even if that's what you're doing, you're imitating them to a certain extent if that's what you're thinking of doing. I don't mean if you want to start a family. But you think you're just going to run through some easy trim like those guys do. Guess who's going to fight you when you get to these places? These same guys. And it's not just them. You got other semi-whites like Ahmed Metwali, an Arab guy who got a Botox operation on his lips, just dissing black passport bros. And sympathizing with the white ones who get into the fights with the black ones. using the N word with a hard R. It's not just white folks that are white supremacists that are our enemies. It is semi-whites or white adjacent people who normalize whiteness and pathologize blackness that are our enemies now. And you will see this in reactions to cases like the one that's got everybody in an uproar right now. And our own boomers, who may mean well, do not fully understand what it is that young guys today do face because they're aware of what they don't face. My father grew up in segregation. When I was in middle school, he asked me, what is it like to go to school with white folks, son? Good or bad, just tell me what it's like. And I told him, Dad, there are days that I don't know what the difference is, but then there are many other days where I wish we didn't have to. Because what I know, they always stifle, even if the conversation is not involving them and it's between me and another black student. They stifle it, and they even are in the minds of other black students. I might be trying to tell what I know. So sometimes when there's no white guy around, the little white guy inside of the other black student whom I'm trying to teach is there. No, but that's crazy talk. Well, you gonna go to hell if you don't love them white folk. I told him I wish that I didn't have to go to school with them. And to be honest, I wish that they didn't rule the country. And then I turned the TV on and it was all about nostalgia. Dennis the Menace, Leave It to Beaver. And I understood why poor whites were pissed. I could see why they would be. The same things they say about our people are the pathologies from which they suffer in truth and not just in rumor. Dukes of Hazzard, what is it about? Two redneck white boys always in trouble with the law. Every single time. Escaping from holding cells all the time. It's always something with them. But the minute you show black folk resisting even when things are not right, all of a sudden it's no longer about resisting tyranny and any of these things. No, it's no more right hands over the hearts and pledging allegiance to the flag and fighting for your freedom. It's no more of that. No, it's get them niggers in line. And it's hypocrisy. And that's the mindset, even if it is not the mindset of the Metcalf twins. And I don't know, well, I know it was of Austin. And that's if he was sophisticated enough to even think about political events like this. But it is the mindset of those that come out and support the thinking they're supporting his family and are against Carmelo even having a right to a defense. They don't want to hear Carmelo's side of the story. None of that. No, they want to hurry up and lynch him, burn him. They want to make a holiday of it. And if they don't get their way, they'll make a holiday out of the riots. And the next time their favorite sports team loses, a football, basketball, or hockey team loses, they want to be able to have riots in the cities and get away with it. Or if their favorite team wins, they want to be able to riot and get away with it. And expect to get away with it. But when you and I are righteously protesting an injustice, they want to call it getting us in line. Do not let the plantation snitch with her campaign of misandry distract you and me from who her massa is and his campaign of racial hatred. Don't make that mistake. I hope that what I've said is a benefit. As always, thank you for listening. Black Heart, Black Mind, Black Out, Assalamu Alaikum, and Black Heterosexual Non-Select Male Power because they don't like it, and Black Patriarchy until extinction and Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with me again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice forever.